All right, guys. Thanks for being here today for this session at Arrows Tales. And, for those who've been here before, you know this, but for the others, this is the intent here is for us to get together and hear the story, a spiritual journey or spiritual experience, or just kind of how somebody got to where they are presently amongst one of our brothers. As you know, I'm Brett Owens, and our feature story today is Mr. Matt Abrameit.
What's up?
So we will move right along here. Matt is not a man of a million words, which is convenient, and he has a very succinct message. That's it. We're done.
Sometimes, yeah. That's it. Yeah.
This
basically sums up my life philosophy now.
So he had sent this to me with some other stuff, kind of as a joke. Oh, I didn't want to.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, hold on. We're giving stuff away. We were talking for quite a while the other day, getting prepared for this, and this is interesting here because it does point out he is a man of faith, and but a word that really keys in here is actually in the latter half of this, and I'll give you a hint: it's not cosmopolitan, and so we'll get to where that leads with Mr. Abrameit.
Extremist.
So I said in the latter half. So a little background because we'll move through this kind of quick. This part. Born in 1987 in Austin, Raised in Houston.
Yep.
Parents Glenn and Shelly.
Correct.
Or as I asked you, what do you call your mom? Mom. Or what's your name? Mom. Younger sister, her name?
Lisa.
Went to elementary at St. Thomas More in Sugar Land. That's also
in Meyerland.
In Meyerland, sorry. Yeah. And that's also where you went to church growing up.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you went to high school.
I did.
At St. Thomas. And played rugby there for the first time.
Yep.
With somebody that some of us know.
Yeah, that's a little Blake color in there.
And from there went to Texas A&M.
Yep.
And same guy, same place. And you were in the Corps.
I was.
And then after that was in the National Guard.
Yep.
And I don't want this to play. How do you keep it from playing?
You have a video?
I don't know. It keeps going. How do I
send you a
stop
video.
this? But the was in the National Guard, ended up in Afghanistan. I want to back up.
Yeah.
Born in Austin, grew up in Houston.
Yeah. So
how'd you get between?
I lived in Austin for 2 weeks. I was adopted, brought to Houston. So I can't quite claim I'm Houston born and raised, but I'm Houston native. So I was adopted when I was 2 weeks old.
And so Glenn and Shelly opened their home to you.
Yes.
And that experience was something that triggered a certain core value or a certain core issue for you.
Yeah, I mean, it's just like the pro-life issue has never been a question for me. A lot of parents that adopt, they do it different ways. They tell their kids when they get older, or, some kids find out on their own. I don't even remember being told that I was adopted. I just knew. And so my mom was like, yeah, we never hid it from you, ever since you were a little kid. So to me, it was always such a obvious thing that, being pro-life or really anti-abortion really is what I am. But
and that one act of love triggered that moral decision was clear.
Yeah, and a little bit of the backstory, and I didn't find a lot of this out till later, but my birth mother was 19 years old, single. She could have easily gone over to the Planned Parenthood and y'all do without your best prop. So, but in all seriousness, that kind was always an obvious thing. It's just it's not something I had to study and come to learn. So it's been with me, and it kind of informed, even as we get further into the story, as degenerate as I got, that was never a question ever. So
was that foreshadowing?
Well, yeah.
So you had from the very beginning, an act of love that was a grounding, a fundamental thing. Went to A&M. So when did you graduate?
I didn't.
Oh, why not?
Remember when I said degenerate?
Yeah, exactly. So who was involved in this degeneracy?
That guy in the Wales jersey for whatever reason. I don't know. I joined, it's not like I went to the Corps Cadets, so damn, Blake. Blake did me dirty. Sent y'all all this. Anyway, so
in the Corps, though, right?
I mean, yeah, I was in the Corps, and like I did well as long as discipline was imposed on me, but I didn't grow into that self-discipline that I needed. So I just went and had fun, went wild, didn't work out. You wind yourself up in the Army. So, I mean, that's the long and short of it, really.
So right here's where we pause. So you were raised going to St. Thomas More.
Yeah.
You went to St. Thomas.
Mm-hmm.
Your parents had made that first act of love.
Yeah.
And you told me they did a good job.
Mm-hmm.
But you still found your way off the path, let's say.
Yeah.
And,
For
and
sure.
as you put it, degenerate. The other way you put it was poop head, but a different word.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
You guys get it.
you ended up in an emo rock band.
Yeah. And then a cover band.
And then a cover band. Who was that with? That guy. Okay. Making sure.
I don't know if y'all ever went to Blake's Arrow's Tale, but it's probably half of it's about the same.
Yeah, similar story. But where you told me, why did you feel that was the case? You had said something about you lacked rigor. You lacked.
Yeah, like I said, I lacked that internal self-discipline. I didn't realize this till obviously, like most things in life, you don't realize it till it's too late. But I was the kind of guy, I should have enlisted in the military out of high school. That would have done me so much better. I should have gone that route, done 4 years, come out, gone to college, or, got a job, whatever. But, it's kind of the way it is. You got to go to college, blah, blah, blah. It sounded great. I just, lost track of what you're really supposed to be doing and just had too much fun.
And you had been involved in ministries outside of church in high school and at youth group, youth stuff?
Yeah, insofar as they kind of made us do youth group stuff, for your confirmation and all that stuff. And yeah, it was fun, but it never really, grabbed me.
And it didn't grab you as a young man, is what you said.
Yeah.
It was part of the experience. So you enlisted.
I did.
Left A&M.
I did.
I think you said you sold cars.
I have sold cars before.
Yeah. But you did start dating your wife.
Yeah.
But not really serious yet.
No.
And then just as you didn't expect it, you did get called up.
Yeah, so that was an interesting thing. Typically, at least at the time, the standard procedure is that in the National Guard you had a 12-month heads up before you were going to deploy. So we had gotten a couple of these 12-month warnings, like, hey, you got a deployment come up, and we'd even got so far as to start training for one, and then for one reason or another, it gets canceled, some other unit gets the job, whatever. And so I was within a couple of years of the end of my enlistment, and so I was like, well, nothing's going to happen. I, got a new job after, because I knew I didn't want to sell cars forever, so I got tired of that. So I found another job, Monday through Friday type job. Really liked it. Really put myself into it. Was doing well, and then I think it was February at drill. They say, "Hey, heads up, there's a mission coming." Okay, heard this before. Absolutely no one believed it. March comes up. Hey, we're going to do our medical review, everything, Sure, done this before. Not going to happen. We're not going. And then in April, then at the end of March, that end of that drill, they said, hey, so in May we go active duty. What? Excuse me? It was a shock. They were like, yeah, you report for drill in April. It's an extended drill. You go home for a couple weeks, and then you're active duty until we say. And so it was a real quick, bam, off you go.
Kind of a hit right when you thought you were set.
Yeah, and you're like, hey, I'm starting this new career, and I'd only been in this job for a few months. And I was like, oh, hey, by the way, guys, sorry, I'm getting deployed. So I'm going to be gone for at least a year. So, yeah, and that happened. And then so we started our train up, and then we deployed overseas in August 2012, and we came home in May, June, something like that.
And you were going to mass every weekend and confession twice a month, right?
Yeah. No, not at all.
So let's talk a little bit about Afghanistan. You mentioned that your deployment wasn't as rough as some. And,
we had in the ways of Afghanistan in 2012, 2013, we had it pretty easy. lived on an air base, surf and turf every week, a couple chow halls, you had a gym, life was good. Got to watch football games. I'll never forget, I watched that A&M Alabama game in 2012 from our medics, like their aid station. They like opened it up in the middle of the night and like let 4 of us in there, and we come out like after winning that game, and it like the sun was coming up, like we were off duty that day, so we had the whole day, like we went to breakfast chow, and everyone was like, "What's going on?" I was like, "Dude, we just beat Alabama." It was I'll never forget it. It was the wildest thing. But yeah, so we had a lot of amenities, but you're still in Afghanistan, and there's still people trying to kill you. So,
and so as you put it, it's the fact that you had a heightened, constant risk.
Yeah, and it's not like you watch the movies and whatever, and it's like gunfights all the time. Like we didn't have any of that. But it's that constant, just elevated. Something could kill me today, and there's a higher chance that something's going to kill me today than if I were back home. You roll outside the wire, outside the base, and you're like, okay, at any point, somebody could pop out from behind, a building or whatever, and just take a pot shot at me and nail me in the face, So it's always that heightened sense of danger and awareness of your own mortality, and that eventually that wears on you, and so it's not like an instant of trauma. Mm-hmm. It's just a constant day to day.
And a few, and that demonstrated by a few near-death experiences, but not
yeah. So I almost got killed once. I was on guard duty in the middle of the night, just goofing off with a buddy of mine at this guard shack for no reason, apparently, because Air Force. And, at this point in our deployment, we had, I don't even know how many dozens of rocket attacks on the base. They just launched rockets at the base, trying to knock down the airfield, keep supplies from coming in, whatever they were trying to do. And so at this point, we were kind of like numb to it. And so and also you get a ton of false incoming alarms. They have this like little radar system on the base, and it detects incoming stuff. Well, there's a false alarm all the time, so you start ignoring it all the time. It's probably not smart, but that's what you do. And we're sitting there, incoming alarm goes off, incoming. We're like, all right, fine, whatever. Boom, like way far away. Like, okay, it's a real rocket attack. But, I mean, our base was so big, our perimeter fence was 20 miles long. It was 19-something miles of perimeter fence. Like, it was a big base. So we're like, okay, fine. First round hits way off the end of the airfield. All right, fine. Start. Okay, fine. We're going to have to go to the, the little shelter, and they're going to come around and check on us and blah, 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 blah. And I just wanted to sit here and hunt mice like we always did. And then second round hits, and we were like, oh, that's pretty close, man. We start getting our armor on, our helmet on, and then, and they always teach you, if you hear the round, you're dead. If you hear it coming, that's it. You're not going to live to see what happens. Well, we happened to get lucky, and so basically we were in the kill or wound radius of the round, but because of where it was a 107 millimeter rocket or something. Where it landed behind a corner of kind of like highway dividers. We call them T-walls, but they're like 12, 13 feet tall, something like that. You've seen them. Kyle's seen a T-wall. So it landed behind a corner of a T-wall, and so that kept all the shrapnel, and it hit in a gravel area, like a gravel parking lot. So it just shot rocks and everything everywhere. And so that's basically what kept us from getting either killed or severely wounded. Anyway, it was a whole big funny thing, and my buddy thought he was going to get killed, and in the moment, because we ran and jumped in an armored. Well, I ran past an armored vehicle to get to the air raid, the little shelter. And I'm running, and my buddy's like, Abrameit, armored vehicle. Okay. Turn around and hop in, but he gets in, and the door's locked from the inside, so he can't get in, and he's screaming, I'm going to die. Anyway, we had a big laugh about it. It was funny, because he was like, I didn't even know you could run that fast. But yeah, and so once that settles down, it kind of really sets in, and then what really kind of drove that home is I saw my buddy after that guard shift, my best friend, and he had been in another guard shack probably a quarter of a mile away, and he was like, for the last 3 hours I thought you were dead. He was like, we heard the round, we heard it hit. He was like, it had to have landed right on top of you. And the only reason it didn't land on top of us, we found out afterwards, is there was a gust of wind that came through the valley and pushed those rounds off trajectory. Otherwise, that sucker would have landed literally on top of us.
That's the interesting thing of being on a base with Air Force weather nerds.
Yeah, I mean, it's pretty crazy. They were like, all right, so here, check it out. Here's the after action. And they're like, here's the wind, blah, blah, blah. And they were like, and I was like, so what does all this mean? They're like, it means if that wind hadn't blown, that round would have landed on top of you. And I was protected by like a pallet and a couple sandbags. Yeah. So wouldn't have done much good.
But you said to me that was less. It's less that it was traumatic and more transformative.
Yeah,
and we'll get to that.
And
we'll get to that in a second. Yeah, we'll get to that. But there's another particular experience besides the near-death experiences. There was a particular experience that later became important, or that happened then and was going to influence you later. And you said that it was a lack of something that you had over there.
Yeah. So we were on a rather big base, but it was kind of out away from where all the focus in Afghanistan is. Like where we were, no movies got made about that place. Like it was out in the west, close to Iran. You know, all the story is in Kandahar and Kabul and the east and the mountains, but we were out in the desert. But anyway, so we didn't have a regular Catholic priest chaplain on base. And so, you know, I spent a Christmas and an Easter out there.
And an Advent.
Yeah, and an Advent, and we didn't have a priest. I think a priest came through once or twice. And that kind of started to wear out, even though at the time, you know, I was, like I said, a degenerate, you know, basically a fallen away Catholic. And I never identified it as anything else. I still said, yeah, I'm Catholic, but I was like a cultural Catholic, I guess you could say. And but it's like when you don't know what you have till you can't have it. So, you know, here you could throw a rock and hit a Catholic church, go to mass whenever you want.
The sacraments were always available.
Yeah, but once it gets taken away, you start to notice it, and you think about it.
You told me you felt it.
Yeah,
you felt the lack of sacraments.
Yeah, you feel disconnected from something. It takes you a minute to figure out what it is, but yeah, and it's the most juvenile thing in the world. You know, you don't miss it till it gets taken away from you. And
so you had the experiences of being in a combat zone, but also this experience of being deprived of some of the normalities of life and faith practice.
Yeah,
and,
for sure.
And so you came home, and
can I just tell a quick story about that picture? Well, did you have? Hold on. I'm sorry, guys.
No, you're good.
When you had, did we talk about this yet?
Ancient.
Yeah,
that's coming up.
Okay. Well, when you get to there, go back to that.
Go back to that. Yeah. Okay, we can do that. So that's just a nice little close up of it.
Oh yeah, there you go. Combat portrait.
But so you said you came back, and but changed.
Yeah,
it transformed. You know?
Yeah, I was definitely not the same guy that left. You know, yeah, I wasn't the same guy that left.
So maybe a bit ripe, or
yeah,
beat up.
Yeah, just like kind of remolded, you know, in the way I saw things, and
then a further experience that had happened on either side of the deployment was grandparents passing away.
Yeah, so my dad's father passed away on my 4-day pass before we deployed, and so I was lucky to get to go to his funeral. And then not long after I got home, my grandma passed away, and you know so I only had my dad's dad, my mom's mom, and they passed like at bookends of that deployment. So you take that, and then
they
the
were
totality.
They were part of your Catholic upbringing.
Not so much my dad's dad, but
your
my mom's mom was our family matriarch, and so yeah, very devout. You know, always a constant example, and yeah, it was a big loss for our family when she passed. Yeah, and then so me having just come home, you know, still trying to figure out who this different guy is, and then you lose, like, you know, you're because I saw my mom's mom all the time, and so when you know she's gone and you're, you know, you have that, like, oh, I should have hung out with my grandma more, you know, I should have done this, should have done that. And so you do have all that on top of this, like, kind of like raw new person that you are. You know, it kind of pushes the accelerator on the changes that were already starting.
And you mentioned maybe not just passive, that you felt.
Yeah. You know, it's funny when I look back on it. I have no doubt that, well, as certain as a mortal can be, that she made it to heaven and then interceded for me to come back to the church. I have no doubt about that.
Because shortly thereafter.
Yeah, it just kind of started
change.
coming out of nowhere. I was like, man, I need to go to Mass. You know, I need to go to confession. Holy smoke. Like, what is going on? You know, and it's like, all right, Mimi, fine, I'll go.
And you said the first place you landed was Holy Rosary.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, and I grew up at St. Thomas More, you know, big parish.
Suburban parish, so to speak.
Yeah, if you will. I'll call it a boomer parish, but you know, I grew up in that 80s, 90s, early 2000s mainstream Catholicism, and that never grabbed me. You know, I always like understood, yes, it's, you know, the one true faith. It's been around since, you know, instituted by Christ himself, but it never really grabbed, and you know, maybe I just didn't reach out and want to grab it. But you know, I was altar boy and all this other stuff, but it just never really took hold. And then I came home, I was looking for something more. I wasn't like looking for tradition. I was just looking for something of, well, maybe I was, I don't know. No, I just wanted, like, I wanted the Catholicism that wasn't the life team that I had to go to.
And that first experience with Holy Rosary, you said, was more reverent.
Yes. You know,
they have a Latin Mass there.
They have a Novus Ordo Mass in Latin.
In Latin,
yeah,
but that just Latin, not.
Yeah, it's Latin, and then they have, you know, the choir. And,
but that influenced you.
Yes.
And started to grab your heart.
Yeah. Yeah, and it was, I was like, okay, well, what's this all about?
And you started to become more serious about things.
Yeah.
Including, you'd been dating Michelle through this whole time.
Most of it, yeah.
And that started to become more serious.
Yeah, I did. You know, I was overseas, and I was like, you know, I could do this as a career, just go fight wars all the time. That'd be kind of cool. Or I could go home and, you know, get married, raise a family. And at some point, I was like, yeah, family man, that's what I want to be. You know, that's what I want to do. You know, I don't want to be a war fighter my whole life. Because I was like, if I make a career of this, I'm not getting married. I'm not having kids. I'm not dragging them through it. I'd seen enough guys. I've seen enough marriages blow up. And, you know, I was like, I'm not doing that.
And so the one problem was she was in Dallas.
Yeah, and she was in Dallas.
And you said you wanted to let her help you make the decision, right?
She was all, you know how women are. You know, we should get married and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, yeah, we should. I was like, but I tell you what, we're not going to get married, you know, till you move back to Houston. I was like, flat out, I was like, you can live in Dallas, but it ain't going to be with me. That's for sure. You know, if I'm going to get married, raise a family, it's going to be here in Houston. So, you know, sure enough, she, you know, got a job in Houston.
What'd you tell her?
I said, you move down here, we'll get engaged. You know, I was like, yeah, we'll do the whole thing. So she moved down, and she didn't realize how literal I was because I proposed to her amidst the moving boxes the day she moved into her apartment. Like, we moved all her stuff in her apartment, and I was like, hey, I'm coming back over. I forgot something. Proposed, like, engagement party at the house. Like, it was, boom. I was like, I told you. All you had to do was get a job down here. So, anyway, I've been holding on to that ring for a while.
And so she moved down. Y'all got engaged.
Yeah.
You got married in 2016.
Mm-hmm.
And you're going to Holy Rosary.
Yeah. So
y'all went through marriage prep.
Not really.
Not really, but you got married in the Catholic Church.
Yeah. Oh, well, I mean, we
were
prepared by one of the priests.
Right. You were going. Yeah. Not necessarily Blake's course, but.
It was. You know, he was like, just go to the retreat and then come back talk to me. It'll be fine. I said, okay, fine. Anyway, but yeah,
we got married there too, so we had to do the one.
Yeah, exactly. In fact, you tell them exactly how many years to the day.
Oh yeah, so your anniversary is, you got married 4/30/16.
Yeah.
and I got married 4/30/2011. So same
place.
church, 5 years
So,
apart
hey.
to the day. So so neither of us will be here for that weekend because it'll be his 5th anniversary and my 10th.
What church was it? Holy Rosary?
Holy Rosary, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, and so I had started going to Holy Rosary, and I started going to Matt. It wasn't like I'm not one of these guys that had like a reversion like that and was like, okay, boom. It slowly took time, and
But Holy Rosary was your choice because there is a more traditional reverent approach there, and that you said that was speaking to you.
Yeah, and that was a big part of what drew me.
And you were coming back into the church.
Yeah, and so I slowly started, more regular, more confession, and so slowly,
and became a married man.
And I decided, and before we got married, I decided like this is the parish where we want to get married, want to raise our kids, because I was like, listen, I'm going to pick a parish and kind of stay there, and the story gets interesting, but yeah, I was like, I was thinking ahead of like, how do I want my kids raised in the faith? What kind of liturgy do I want them to see? Can somebody?
Yeah, get him one.
The green one, thanks. I was thinking like, huh?
Beer check.
Yeah, just sing on. So I was thinking, what parish do I want to make my home? Thank you. Not yet. Thanks. Where do I want to put down roots? Because I grew up. My parents had been going to St. Thomas More since long before I was born. Both my sister and I were baptized there. We had all our sacraments there. So I wanted something like that for my family.
To have a family parish.
Yeah, I wanted to put down roots, and I didn't mind driving there. And it's funny, like one of the things that made me think to go to Holy Rosary was, even though we were St. Thomas More parishioners, we had this like family tradition, of every Holy Thursday, we would go to the Holy Thursday Mass in the evening at Holy Rosary with my grandma. And she was a Holy Ghost parishioner for like decades, forever. And so we always did it on Holy Thursday. We went to the Holy Thursday Mass, the benediction, and then we would, like the whole family would go out to eat. And a lot of times our family from out of town would be in town for Easter, so it was a big family thing. And I was like, maybe I'll go check it out because, I just always remembered at the benediction, the procession of the Blessed Sacrament with them, the monks chanting Tantum Ergo, all the incense. I was like, dude, that's my aesthetic. That's what I want. So I was like, I'll go check it out now. I was like, I haven't, been here since I was a kid. So I went and checked it out, went to Mass there. And so, that's where I decided that, that's where we were going to go.
And it was working for you. It had pulled you in.
Yeah, for sure.
But then wife gets pregnant.
Yeah.
And you started to feel a push a little bit further, right?
Yeah, and that's really when it got kicked into overdrive. I was like, okay, I need to really stop being a...
And that
hey.
Is that Ellie?
No. That's
see, I couldn't tell. I was trying to go back and forth through pictures.
She looks so devious.
So, yeah, well, it's you with a kid. That'll work. She's got 2 great daughters, so that's the baby.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, whatever.
Well,
it's a kid.
You only give me
They're all
some
the
pictures. But Ellie on the way, you were feeling something more.
Yeah.
And what happened? You went somewhere.
Yeah, I just happened to go, and to be honest, I can't really remember. I'd found like a blog or something talking about the traditional Latin Mass. I was like, let's go see what that's about. So it was like the normal Mass I went to was the 9:30 a.m. at Holy Rosary, and I was like, Annunciation's about the same distance, and they have a 9. It's a traditional Latin Mass. Let's go see what that's about. It was over. It was over.
It broke you.
Yeah, I was like, "What is this? This is what I've been missing." Like, I was like, "What is this?" You can read about it, but you go there, you experience it, you just like sit and watch, and you're like, "What is this?" And then you realize, like, and at least for me, it came out of like a history buff kind of deal. I was like, this is the same exact liturgy that my ancestors went to 500 years ago, 600 years ago. And mostly unchanged for over 1,000 years. So that, to me, that tickles my like history nerd brain. It's like I was like, that's cool.
Well, and we come to that, like all these. There's various roots here.
Yeah.
That come to this point, and so you said, to me that you discover that Mass and it changed you, where you found what is you, your worship, and your Mass, and that. So, a few points you said felt rootless outside of your family previously.
Yeah, and while I was, drifting around as a degenerate, not going to Mass or whatever, I was rootless. I was back to the first slide, I was a rootless cosmopolitan, just following the way of the world. Hey, what's everybody doing? Hey, we're going to go out and get drunk, fornicate, whatever. Cool, let's do it, Just no grounding, really, that I could perceive at the time. Or I was rebelling against said grounding. Didn't even really know it.
And you said that a lot of what you had experienced as a young man, to you it had all felt new and not ancient.
Yeah, and
and like an innovation gone stale. That is a
criticism
that you made that I think is fair to put there.
Yeah, and to me it was always I don't really know. Yeah, the 90s felt banner, stupid hym, Marty Hagen, stupid music. It never spoke to me, and I'll tell you, I don't like it at all.
Yeah. But that's the beauty of it, is there was something for you to find.
Yeah, it was that. Like I said, that was one of the things that never grabbed me. I was like, man, this feels like it didn't feel masculine at all. Not much about that kind of Catholic upbringing, public Catholic upbringing. The Catholic schools, the youth conferences, whatever. Great stuff if you're into that kind of thing.
But there is something that young men need.
But yeah, and a lot of it really it comes down to it felt overly emotional. It felt kind of touchy feely. At least a lot of the youth conferences and all this kind of stuff.
And also,
and young men that are 13, 14 years old, you're like, what is this? This isn't for me. Yeah. That's not what, most young men are looking for. We would just go hang out at the, have fun, talking to chicks or whatever, because they're all emotional. It's fun. They'll talk to you.
But some of it was at the cost of the manly things of rigor, discipline.
Yeah,
some of that
and that's, what I was looking for in a theme of my life story is just a ridiculous lack of discipline.
Yeah. So, and two things that I thought were amazing when we went through this is that led you to that spot that were really interesting. Is one, you had said war changes you, and we got guys here that can speak to that in different ways. But you had made the point about height and risk always. But I thought this was interesting that you had said, and I'll go back to that slide that you were talking about.
Yeah.
You had said part of what made you see a need for roots or a need to connection back was that experience there. You had gone to an ancient place where there's an ancient people, and you were doing an ancient thing.
Yeah,
fighting a war.
Yeah, and you kind of lose some perspective. In the United States. The United States is so young. Not much here that we connect to our culture or civilization is much older than 200 or 300 years. This photo was taken actually on my 26th birthday. That was a cool birthday present. But where I'm standing, you can see it's at the top of a ridge line, and you see that little dugout area and that little mound on each side. Well, those are walls built by Alexander the Great. Wow. That's a fortress that he built. How 2,500 years ago or whatever it was. So talking about an ancient place, holy moly, the Silk Road is, just over that horizon. One of the oldest cities on the planet was 60 miles away. And so that kind of just seeps into you. You're like, you could sit there and daydream all day. You're like, man, some other grunt carried a bunch of crap 1,000 feet up. It was 1,000-foot vertical to get up here at the very top. Ground as steep as at one point you were walking up the trail, you could put your hand out and almost touch the ground straight in front of you. I'm talking about a quad burner. That's why everybody's sitting down. We're couldn't stand up. It was crazy. And you're some grunt did this 2,500 years ago. And he sat up there and complained about his leadership the same way we did. And I was it connects you to something that you're way back in the past. Yeah.
And if you, what Alexander would have been, what was he, 450 BC, something like
Yeah.
that. Regardless, the point is the mass that you appreciate
Yeah.
is closer to his time
Yeah.
than it is to our time
Yeah.
when it was originated.
Yeah, and so kind of like once I experienced that, like that kind of turned me into like a travel buff anyway. So I was like, wanted to go to Greece and all this other stuff. But like, yeah, old things speak to me. I like history. I like origins of cultures and all this kind of stuff. And so when I found the traditional Latin Mass, the Mass of Ages, I was like, this is how old? And it hasn't changed, but they started genuflecting here 300 years ago because some saintly king did it. Okay, cool. And they haven't changed anything since, or very little. It's just really old, really, really old. And that spoke to me at first. And then I learned, the theology, the philosophy behind it, the geometry of it, the discipline of it. It's very, I don't know how many of you have been to Jerusalem Mass. It's very ordered. It's almost militaristic in its rubrics. And the priest does what the red says and says what the black says. That's it. And the altar boys only. It's a big thing. I'm a big fan of that.
Careful.
I'm not an altar girl fan. Anyway, it's very rigorous. It's like you have to do this thing, you have to memorize this thing, you have to recite it at this time, you have to, move this way. You have, when you move the lectionary from the epistle side to the gospel side, you have to come down, you have to turn, you have to genuflect. Like, it's very regimented. And that, to me, that's like, oh yeah, I like that kind of stuff. I'm ex-military. Like,
It's the anchor of the rock you wanted.
Yeah, it's what I've been looking for pretty much my entire life.
And it's not being tied down to something.
Yeah.
It's being connected.
Yeah.
So you had sent me that and said that really sums up.
Yeah, and I said, I told you, I was like, if you're gonna put one slide up there, that's it. Because a lot of guys or a lot of
likes
people.
camp memes, not the quote, just the camp memes.
Oh, I love cooking over a campfire. Ooh, let me tell you. We're not here for that though. And a lot of the criticism that traditionalists get nowadays is they're stuffy, they're mean, they're trapped in the past, and it's like, no, I've never seen more babies in one place than the mass I go to on Sundays. It's ridiculous. And
So where do you go now?
I go to Regina Caeli.
And I don't know if that's Regina Caeli.
Yeah, it is.
Yep. But that's, and you told me that after what you had said about Holy Rosary, this was a home you found for a family. You found something new, and you're like, oh, this is it.
Yeah, and you know what? It was,
you want to share it with your family.
Yeah, and it was almost a conflict, it wasn't almost. It was a definite internal conflict for a while, really, because I love Holy Rosary so much. Like, I love the community. I love all the priests there. They're great. But I knew that once I started going to Latin Mass, I was like, this is what I want my kids growing up in. I was like, my ancestors, not even ancestors, like great grandparents grew up going to this same Mass. And I was like, I want my children raised going to this Mass, this liturgy, in this community. So yeah, it was a really tough decision, really, to finally make the move. But yeah, we did. And, we're super happy, except for, kids at Mass.
That's never easy.
How long?
Do
how
what?
far is that from your house?
40 minutes on a Sunday.
So
with no traffic.
I'll throw this in for you. So our business manager at St. Rose is a Regina Caeli parishioner.
Yeah.
St. Dominic. And but we were talking about it last night, and what's interesting is Regina Caeli keeps growing, but it's not going to keep growing, because what's instead going to happen, because it's up over there, there is going to be a seeding, because of all the young people there. There's going to be a seeding of an appreciation for the traditional Mass, and now with the changes that you'll see other parishes start to offer that. You'll you may see the diversity of Mass opportunities throughout the Archdiocese.
And it's kind of started, the Annunciation has been the only place since Vatican II that has had an unbroken Tridentine Mass, the Latin Mass. They've had it the entire time.
For that, correct?
Yeah, they had back then they called it the indult Mass, because you had to have what's called an indult, like special permission to do it. And they've always had it. But yeah, you can find it there, and now you can find it at St. Teresa's in Sugar Land. They have one on Sunday evenings, and so yeah, it's growing. And it's like, a lot of people think that traditionalists are like, I want to do away with everything. It's like, no, I want to show everybody like what this is. This is yeah, it's the way it used to be, but it's the way it can be still. So it's
and it could be a really interesting opportunity for those, especially for young men that.
Yeah, for sure. And it really attracts like guys. Like sometimes you'll see like some dude by himself there a couple weekends in a row, and then sure enough, his family's there with him, after a while. And he's like, okay, yeah, we're doing this. Let's go. So yeah, and it's funny because I have a lot of friends that, discovered the Latin Mass. We didn't grow up in it, so everybody comes to it through different ways. And a lot of the married guys I know, they're like, yeah, it took a while to convince my wife to go to this, and all the guys fall in love with it first. And that's almost a universal experience with all my friends that are married. Even Michelle, she was like hesitant at first. I was like, no, this is what we need to do, and I couldn't explain like why. And eventually, I was like, let's just go to it, So we started doing it first. We were still going to Holy Rosary. We would go to Annunciation like once a month. We're like, let me do this. Come on, let's go to Latin Mass once a month. This is all right. So we do that, and then finally it was 2 times a month. Then it was like, hey, let's go to Regina Caeli, and then that's where we wound up. And so that's where we're at now.
I think Vincent mentioned because he had some of the stats. The average parishioner age at Regina Caeli is like 16.
Oh yeah, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, it's really young.
Yeah, I think I'm trying to remember. Somebody told me some crazy stat. I think it's like over half of like the actual like on paper parishioners are kids. It's wild.
Yeah. Families.
Yeah.
You don't have 5 kids, you don't belong.
Well,
you don't have to be there yet. Come on now.
I mean, not yet, but
Not yet.
getting there. It takes time. But yeah, no, you will see like a lot of young families, with a lot of kids, and for some reason I have the worst behaved kids there, so they might throw me out soon. So this talk might be moot soon, but I don't know. My kids are crazy.
Well, it's 2 girls. You'll see. So you married in 2016, had Ellie in 2017, and it was while your wife was pregnant that you discovered the Latin Tridentine Mass.
Yeah.
So, and led to this experience. And we've made the points of traditionalism.
Yeah.
A couple other points we always cover is arrows. How did arrows influence you, or how did you end up there? So the first step.
Yeah. You got another dumb picture, don't you?
Yeah. So how did you end up at arrows?
Anybody want to guess?
Blake.
There you go. Yeah.
Look at the guy in the background.
Yeah, that's actually my friend's stepdad. The Mexican guy? Yeah.
Hold on. Rugby history. Anybody know where that is?
BBVA Caucus?
Yeah, but why? When?
Is that USA Scotland?
No.
Yes. USA, Scotland?
No, it's not.
It's not? Oh, never mind.
USA Italy.
Nope, that's from 2013.
Oh, that's a way back. So this was before you got to the
Yeah.
Arrows.
Oh, yeah, this is way before Arrows. Yeah.
So, it's going to move on us. But Blake reached out to you, and what were some of the influences?
Yeah, he was, Blake was, he was like, hey, we're starting up this Catholic guys rugby club. And I was like, okay, all right. I'd been looking to play rugby, but he just hit me at the right time, man. My enlistment was up in January of 2017. I was getting out, and I wanted the thing that I knew the thing I was going to miss about military life was my buddies. I wasn't going to miss like 90% of the crap that you do, but I knew I was going to miss that, group of guys that you hang out with where you can be dudes, It's like, fraternity, I guess, in the ideal of fraternity. And so I was looking for something. I almost ever since I was in Afghanistan, I wanted to play rugby again. So it'd been a few years. I started watching rugby again. And it's like, man, I want to play. And so, Blake was like, hey, they're starting this club, blah, blah, blah. Because I was
Catholic.
looking at, and I was like, because I was thinking about, because I didn't want to get into rugby until I was done with the military. It takes up, even in the National Guard, it takes up a ton of time. And, it was taking me away from my wife. And then, we knew we were going to have kids soon. So, it was like kind of one thing at a time. And so okay, fine, got out of the military. And I was originally going to join like Hark or something, one of the clubs I already knew about. And then Blake was like, hey, man, it's Catholic guys. And it was just something inside of me. Like, I could even still at the time, like, kind of feel like the hesitation to the whole, like, go full bore into the Catholic thing. It's like, yeah, I go to Mass on Sunday and blah, blah, blah. I go to confession when I need to. But I was like, still part of me didn't want to, like, live the faith fully in my everyday life. And then I was like, well, he's playing. I'll at least go play with somebody I know. And I joined this club, and man, for the first time, really, probably in my life, it was a place where I could be an unashamed Catholic, like with a bunch of dudes, and just like live my faith and just talk about it all the time, and be like, this is who I am, because even still, like a lot of group of guys are like, you know what I'm getting at, it's like a Catholic group of guys, even the guys that aren't Catholic, at least hang around and let us prattle on about it all the time. But it was just a place where I could be like who I wanted to be. And so I've been.
You said it was a better group of guys than the other alternatives.
Yeah, I mean, I still miss my other guys. They're all degenerates, but I'll convert them one day.
And I thought it was interesting. You said it happened right as you were finding the TLM.
Yeah,
right as
and a lot of this happened right at the same time. And I have no doubt that it was, my grandma interceding for me, and probably a lot of big saints were like, all right, we need to help this guy out. So he needs it. But yeah, it just all came together right at the same time. Getting out of the military, learning more about the traditional faith, just learning more about the doctrines and everything anyway, discovering, Catholic podcasts, start listening to that, just learning about various topics, it's like, well, let's learn about this today,
Nerding out.
Yeah, being able to nerd out in it, and then, add rugby on top of it. Yeah, man, like, let's do it. So, yeah, and I've been here ever since, and it's been kind of a life-changing thing to find this club, so.
It's been great.
Yeah.
I can speak to that, too. Well, you got any other points? That kind of brings us to...
Man, I thought I had something, but no, I guess I've rambled on enough.
That was great. I appreciate it. Thank you, Matt.
Yeah,
for
man.
the time.
Thanks for having me.
And I think we'll wrap up here. We'll do some questions for just a minute.
Yeah,
you guys can
any
grab
questions?
beers. But thank you very much. All right, guys. Thanks for being here today for this session of Arrows Tales. And, for those who've been here before, you know this, but for the others, this is the intent here is for us to get together and hear the story, a spiritual journey or spiritual experience, or just kind of how somebody got to where they are presently amongst one of our brothers. As you know, I'm Brett Owens, and our feature story today is Mr. Matt Abrameit.
What's up?
So we will move right along here. Matt is not a man of a million words, which is convenient, and
Yeah.
he has a very succinct message. That's it. We're done.
Sometimes, yeah. That's it. Yeah.
No,
This basically sums up my life philosophy now.
So he had sent this to me with some other stuff, kind of as a joke. Oh, I didn't want to.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, hold on. We're giving stuff away. We were talking for quite a while the other day, getting prepared for this, and this is interesting here.